This is our third lesson in the series on personal finance, which is based on the class Business 2500. In Lesson 1, we talked about the biblical basis for personal financial management. In that lesson, we learned that we can find the answers we need in Scripture. In Lesson 2, we talked about starting our financial journey by determining exactly where we stand financially today. Step 1 was balancing our checkbook, which allows us to make sure our financial house is in order and under our control, and tells us how much money we have on for expenses. Step 2 was creating a balance sheet. We said a balance sheet was a snapshot of our financial health because it tells us, bottom line, if we're solvent. That is, could we sell all we have of value, pay off all of our debts, and then have money left over? The third step in determining where we are financially is developing a budget. We talked about how to keep records of all of our expenses, go through our credit card bills and check register, and thus figure out where our money's going. From that information, we can establish a budget that tells us how much we have coming in and where it's going. The ultimate goal of budgeting is to create a situation where we're spending less than we earn. Why? Because the excess that we squeeze out of the budget becomes the source of funds to achieve our financial goals. Do you have financial goals? Most of us do, even if we haven't written them down. For instance, we all have thought or will think about our desire to retire. In essence, that's a financial goal. Some want to buy a new car. Some may want to buy a house. Going on vacation is another example. In short, if you've ever said something like, I sure would like to fill in the blank, but I don't have the money, you've formed an idea about a financial goal. Many people avoid setting goals. There are many reasons for this. One major reason is fear of failure. If I never set a goal, I'll never fail to reach it. Zig Ziglar was a motivational teacher and trainer who famously said, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Fear of failure is a powerful motivator. Another reason for not setting goals that I hear is that someone simply doesn't have the time. There's truth to this. We're amazingly busy in our modern world. But if you feel this way, think about the consequences of not taking the time for goal setting. Have you ever heard people expressing regrets about things not accomplished in life? For many such people, these things were not accomplished simply because they did not take time to define them as a goal for their lives. Many don't know how to set a goal or what goal to set. It just seems overwhelming. If you fit into any of these categories, may I make a suggestion? Pray. God has a plan for your life, and that plan contains goals that He has in mind for you. James 1:5 says, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men generously, and without reproach, and it, knowledge, will be given to him. When undertaking any new venture, the first step is always prayer. Jeremiah 29:11 through 14 confirms this. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. And I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes. Before we sit down to write out a list of goals, let's talk about what a good goal really looks like. For instance, I may say that I want to lose weight. Is that a goal? More or less, but mostly less. Is there anything compelling about that statement? What does it motivate me to do? As stated, it doesn't motivate me to do anything specifically. It's kind of a dream. A goal should be more than a dream. It should have components that motivate us. I like to use the acronym SMART, S-M-A-R-T, when setting a goal. A SMART restatement of the weight loss goal would look like this. I want to lose 30 pounds in the next 12 months. What makes it SMART? Let's look at what the acronym stands for. S stands for specific. A goal has to be specific. Wanting to lose weight is admirable, but what defines weight loss? If I lose 1 pound, I've lost weight. Has my implied goal been achieved? Well, not so much. M stands for measurable. Losing weight by itself is measurable, but losing 1 pound probably will not suffice. we need a specific number to shoot for. A is accepted. The goal must be accepted. Who must be accepting? The one who sets it, of course. That may seem intuitive, but many people set goals that they think they should set rather than the goals that are appropriate for their lives. Our society tells us what we should value, and sometimes that may influence the goals we set. In short, if you're only half-heartedly accepting of that goal, it's unlikely to be achieved. Your goal must be realistic, that's the R, but still challenging. If my goal is so high that I have no hope of achieving it, I doom myself to failure from the start. If it's so low that it isn't a challenge, I may put off starting work on it, sometimes forever. The T is time-bound. There must be some time limit when the goal must be achieved. If the goal statements include the words someday, you can count on it never happening. So let's look back at my weight loss statement. I want to lose 30 pounds in the next 12 months. Does it meet the criteria? It's certainly specific. It's measurable because I put a number to it. Only I know in my heart whether it's accepted, but then again, if I bother to put this much thought into it, it probably is. 30 pounds in 1 year means fewer than 3 pounds per month. That's certainly realistic, but also challenging. Those of you who, like me, have dieted know how challenging that can be. It's time-bound because I have set a time limit for the goal to be met. So it is indeed a SMART goal. Before we start setting our financial goals, though, I want to discuss the idea about categorizing goals. First, as short, intermediate, and long-term. A short-term goal is typically one that we would expect to reach in a year or less. For instance, if we wanted to start saving $1,000 as an emergency fund, that typically would take less than a year. An intermediate goal runs in the range of 2 to 5 years. Such a goal might be paying off all our credit card debt. A typical long-term goal might be saving for your kids' college, depending on their age, or retirement. With that said, let's apply these ideas to financial goals. Each of us will have goals that are unique to us and our situation, but there are some that resonate with most of us. Take my example of a short-term goal of saving an emergency fund, for example. To be smart, it might be stated this way: I want to save a $1,000 emergency fund in 3 months. It meets all the SMART criteria, and it is in itself a great goal for most of us. Far too many Americans have no cash emergency funds. Instead, they count on a credit card if something unexpected happens. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with this, but if one of your goals is to get out of credit card debt, it seems counterintuitive to add to that debt during the process. Now let's set an intermediate goal. Speaking of credit card debt and paying it off, the average American household carries $15,355 in credit card debt. The average interest rate nationwide is 18%, and at the minimum payment of 4% of the balance each month, it will take 14 years and 10 months to pay off that balance, assuming no further borrowing. The total payments will be $22,441. And this comes from Money Magazine in February of 2016. So let's talk about the average American setting a goal to get out of credit card debt. We will use a balance of $4,717, which is average individual credit card debt, at 12% for our example. The faster we pay it off, the less interest we will pay, so let's try a 5-year goal. Stated as a SMART goal, it would be, I want to pay off my $4,717 credit card debt in 5 years. Using a credit card loan calculator found online, we see that if we paid the minimum of $188 per month, it would take us 9 years and 4 months to pay off. If we double our monthly payment to $377, we're debt-free in a mere 57 months, saving ourselves almost $1,000 in interest in the process. Now, having put numbers to the goal, we can check to see if it's SMART in our personal financial situation. It is specific, measurable, accepted, and time-bound. The only question is it realistic? Can my budget stand an increase of $188 in payments each month in addition to what I'm already doing? If so, we have a SMART goal. If not, we go back to the drawing board, meaning we will re-examine the goal to modify it or re-examine our budget to eke out the extra payment. By the way, cut up the credit card and don't open a new one. Finally, we want to talk about an example of a long-term goal. My favorite is retirement, although many of my adult students are concerned about paying for college for their children. To these people, I say there are many ways for your child to go to college, but only one way to retire. Retirement comes first. So let's pretend we're 35 years old, living on $75,000 take home per year. We know that we want to retire at age 65, so we have a specific time-bound partial goal of retiring in 30 years. Retirement is accepted as a goal simply because it's going to happen someday. We might as well be prepared. The hardest question for most of us to answer is, how much do I need to have in savings to retire? A simple rule of thumb that I found says that if you're going to receive Social Security, and if you're very young, I wouldn't take that for granted, and you enter retirement with no debt, a retirement account with 10 to 12 times your current earnings should be adequate. That means in our example, we need $750,000 to $900,000 in our account. Now our goal begins to be measurable. We need to set a specific amount of money, and for our example, we'll use the halfway point, $825,000. Can I save that much in 30 years? If you're doing the math with me, that equates to almost $2,300 per month, or $27,500 each year in savings until age 65. If your answer is yes, we have our SMART goal. If the answer is no, I can't save that much, what do we do? Based on the answer to our intermediate goal scenario, we revisit the budget or we modify the goal. One such modification would be to delay retirement, giving us more time to save. Another way would be to plan to reduce our standard of living when we retire, thus reducing the savings necessary. Neither of these is particularly attractive, but there is a third alternative. We can do our part by saving as much as possible while investing our savings to earn a compound rate of return that increases our retirement balances. That is the subject of our next session, where we will talk about investment fundamentals. For now, remember that we must set concrete financial goals, and we always want them to be SMART.